This is Battalion Chief Bailey Martin with the Richmond Fire Department. We're here with another edition of the Richmond Fire Dialogues. We are trying some new things in our podcast. So today I have Lieutenant Travis Stokes is going to be joining me as a co-host.
Yes.
And this episode is geared around Black History Month. And one of the things we wanted to do with this podcast is to tell stories about our members and some of their experiences. And this month, one of our goals was to reach out to some of our retirees. So this month we have retired Battalion Chief Joe Jenkins with us. And so welcome, Chief. We really appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And we're just excited to have you. Just hopefully have a good conversation about some of your experiences with the fire department, and kind of look back a little bit on your experiences. And we were speaking a little bit earlier about the amount of change that you experienced while during the course of your career. And so I think that's going to be very interesting for our listeners and for our department. So thanks again for joining us.
All right, you're more than welcome. I'm Joe Jenkins, born and bred in Richmond, Virginia. I grew up in Creighton Court Housing Development. Matter of fact, my family moved in, I was 4, and I moved out permanently when I was 23. I spent 3 years in the military prior to finally moving out of Creighton Court on my own. But I enjoyed it. I attended Armstrong High School, class of 65. A lot of people didn't know I marched in the marching band for 4 years, playing trumpet. And I was starting shortstop on the baseball team in my senior year. And those going through that prepared me for my future, believe it or not. And I joined the military. Spent 3 years in the military.
What branch of the military, Chief?
The United States Army.
Okay.
I was in the Army for 3 years during the Vietnam era. However, I spent my entire 3 years in Germany.
Wow.
I don't know how that happened. But I don't even question it anymore. And then once I was discharged from the military, come back to Richmond, back to the projects, because that's where my mom's and my family still live. Now it's time for me to find a job. I've been on a lot of interview panels, and the question is often asked, why did you join the fire department? And people come up with these fancy answers. I joined the fire department because I was looking for a job. And the fact that my best friend was in the fire department, and he had been in the fire department maybe 2 years. And one thing I noticed when I got out of the military, when I saw him, it's like he was never at work. He worked Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and he'd be off for it. I said, that sounds like the type of job for me. That's how I ended up at the fire department. When I went to City Hall to apply, they had a table for police recruits and another table set there for fire recruits. Because during that time, City of Richmond had just annexed 25 square miles of Chesterfield, so they were looking for people, period. And that's how I became a member of the Richmond Fire Department. It wasn't about, I didn't think about it when I was a kid. I never dreamed about it, or any of them. Never paid the fire department any attention. But it's probably one of the best decisions I've ever made. But then after that, I got in the military in January. I was in the fire department by April, and went through the training academy. I didn't have an automobile, and those out there, some of the people viewing this may remember the 7 Pines bus. I used to catch that at the corner of 9 Mile Road and Creighton Road, catch the 7 Pines bus down to Beulah Road, right there at the 7-Eleven that's sitting there, and I walked from the 7-Eleven to the training academy. And of course, a lot of lessons learned that it really made you appreciate the job, and the walk. I enjoyed the walk. But I only had to do it for about 3 days because me and my personality, I met everybody in the class, and the guys, certain people would pick me up right there at 7-Eleven. Later on, I would be picked up right there at Creighton and 9 Mile Road. But that was my start. No car, you know. I was happy to have a driver's license. And it didn't concern me not to have a car because I never had a car. My father never had a car. Uh, I rode the bus all my life, so riding the bus was second nature to me. That's what I did. However, during the final week of, well, maybe the fourth week of my stay at the training academy, they gave us all of our equipment, the helmet, the boots, etc., all the firefighting equipment. And everybody was putting the firefighting equipment in the trunk because you didn't have a locker. Now I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I don't have a car, put a trunk in, you know, and I'm just piling my stuff up in the corner. And they said, well, we'll tolerate that for a little bit, but you got to get your stuff out of there. Anyway, long and short of it, I finally bought me an automobile. And I was happy to have my own car. Upon graduation from the training academy, I was sent to 3 truck about Lombard and Broad. That's in April of 1970. That's when I started my career, and I enjoyed it. The first year was tough because you're on probation. I'm learning the district. You know, I'm learning the people that I'm working with. And I also found out that from Lombard and Broad, 2 blocks over, it's Monument Avenue. And, you know, all of that was my district, all the fan district, that was my district. On a particular day, Lieutenant called everybody, we going out. And I used to get happy when we were going out to give me an opportunity to ride on the fire truck, carry me for training to be a tillerman, and it helped me learn my district. However, on this particular day, we stopped at the Stonewall Jackson monument. I'm going, what are we stopping here for? And I see all these tables set up, chairs set around in a semicircle, and we stopped the truck. I go, what? And they got a little sign there saying Daughters of the Confederacy. I don't know. And get out, you know, we all get off the truck, and my lieutenant said, okay, Joe, put a light on this side. And told the other guy, I can't remember his name, put a light on the other side. Well, okay, I ain't had no problem doing that. He said, all right, Joe, here. You gave me a flag, but it's rolled up. So I'm going on up there. He said, when you get your end up, pass the other end to the other guy. I said, okay. He said, you see some hooks up there. I still don't know what's going on, you know, and I'm the only black firefighter there. So I hooked my side up. He hooked. Let's put it like this: the largest Confederate flag I have ever seen in my life. You know, I'm hooked. He's hooked, and we unfurl it, and the ladies and the people down there, they applaud, and I'm going, I got to get out of here. So I go down the ladder, because we finished. We did what we came to do. So I went to my lieutenant. I said, Lieutenant, when we get back to the engine house, I'd like to have a talk to you. He looked me dead in my eye. He said, I'd be disappointed if you didn't want to discuss this, because he could see the embarrassment. I was embarrassed, and yeah, totally caught off guard. And we went back to the engine house, and I spent an hour, almost 2 hours, in his office. He informing me how the fire department became a part of that. It was more or less a traditional thing. They've been doing it for years. We never even considered the impact it would have on a black firefighter. He said that was not on the radar screen. But he did tell me, he said, Jenkins, when we go again, he said, because we do the same thing at the Robert E. Lee statue, which is 2 blocks up. He said, but I tell you what, you don't have to help with the flag, but you got to go. I said, okay. and I understood that. I'm on. So, but when we went, I sit on the running board. I didn't have to participate, and so I made it through that. And I always say that I was blessed to have that lieutenant, Lieutenant Ray Valier, as my lieutenant, because you got to remember I was 22 years old, fresh out the army. You couldn't tell me nothing, and won't nothing I couldn't do, especially physically. And we used to have long talks, and he used to tell me, he said, Jenkins, he said, certain things are going to happen. He said, but if you hit someone, you're playing right into their hands. He said, because you don't have a leg stand on, you're on probation, you would get fired instantly. He said, now you could give them that, or you could keep this job. And it was because of him that, more or less, he stopped me from doing stupid, foolish things. And to this day, never forget him. But moving on past there, but other than that, my time at in 3 Truck, 13 years, I enjoyed it. But during that time, in 1976, members of the Black Brothers Combined organization approached me about playing softball for the fire department softball team. And I said, why me? He said, because they don't let any black guys start on the team. He said, the few that go out there, they either sit on the bench or after a while they get flustered and they quit. I said, well, they said, no, Jenkins, we need you to go out there because we know if they set you or won't allow you to play, then we know it's a racist softball team. I said, okay. So I went out there, tried out for the team, and sure enough, I was starting second baseman for 2 years and moved over to shortstop in my third year. And I was on the team from 76 until 87, I think. No, it was longer than that. But anyway, I enjoyed it. And I guess I showed that because of my abilities and capabilities and the way I handled myself on that softball team, they had to play me. They had no choice, They And on that year, my first year, we played in the national softball tournament. That was in Maryland, and we came in second place, and that's the closest ever come in 20 years. And but I enjoyed my time. Of course, met a lot of people.
How'd that affect your relationships with the people on the team or other people in the fire department?
It influenced other black firefighters to come out for the team. Some of the better black firefighters decided that they would come out also. But I guess the biggest thing was my lieutenant. He would allow me. I was in play for the 2900 Club for 20 years also. That was my number 1 team. My lieutenant would allow me to leave work, go and play softball, and we only played on Sundays. Play 2 games. I play on Sundays, and I come straight back to work.
Wow.
And because he felt like he could trust me, he knew that I was going out there, play softball, and as soon as the game was over, I was coming straight back. I wasn't hanging around doing, the things that men do after softball games. And I meant I wasn't going. I used to say that's a good thing. I'm not gonna mess this up. I'm not gonna tarnish his name. I'm not gonna tarnish mine. When the game was over, the guy said, "Oh, Joe must be working." I said, "Yep, I'm gone." I mean, it was a little difficult sometimes, but and that's why whenever I called his name, I get a little emotional. He looked out for me. He really did. But anyway, moving right along.
Do you think that was common back then? To have a white officer take a black firefighter under his wing like that?
No, not at all. I haven't. And all the other black firefighters that I came through the ranks, never heard them speak as highly as I do about my lieutenant. But he was during that time, he was the last white lieutenant that still lived within the city of Richmond. Everybody else either lived in Hanover, Henrico, different places. But he still lived in the city of Richmond. So, But yeah, that was impactful. I enjoyed him, and he just, you know, I mean, one day, and this is another story where they hit me with a bucket of water, right? And you know how firefighters play pranks and jokes, and that's what firefighters do. But you know, hit me with a bucket of water, and of course you never know who did it. And I come running up steps, engine 10, that's a two-story engine house. I come running up the steps, raising Cain. And the lieutenant heard me as I was coming up the steps, and he grabbed me. And I almost hit him because I didn't know he grabbed me from behind. Anyway, and he said, and I told him, I said, look at this, I'm tired of this, blah, blah, this and that, you know, the language you can imagine. And we went in the office again, closed the door and sit down. And he said, and he repeated the same thing. He said, do you want to keep this job? He said, they're playing you, and what are you going to do? You going to let this happen? And I said, no. I said, okay, I'll dry off. I'll get me another shirt. But those are some of the things that went on in the engine house. Now, as I progressed through the years, promotion exam. And I could win the dress that too, but I'm not. I had no thoughts or ideas about becoming a lieutenant. That was not on my radar screen. I was happy being a firefighter. I enjoyed playing softball. I had a family then. You know, I had 2 daughters, married, and I was just, you know. But also during that time, I did attend J.S. Reynolds and got my associate's degree in fire science, which was another fluke. And you know, because, and I make all of this clear because I don't want it to seem like that was a plan for me. It was not a plan. I ended up going to J.S. Reynolds because several guys were going and said that Uncle Sam pays for it, and if you got a child, you'll get so much money a month. All right. So I hopped all over that. That's how I ended up going to J.S. And taking advantage of the opportunity. And been there 2 years. I said, well, Uncle Sam, after 2 years, they cut you off. You know, that's long enough for the funding. So I went and saw the counselor. I said, well, listen, this is it for me. She looked at me. She said, Mr. Jenkins, you know you only need 37 more credits. I was going, I'm that close. She said, yeah, because I had no idea. And so, of course, you know, I got the 37 hours and got my little associate's degree and gave my little piece of paper, and I put my cap and gown on, and, you know, and that was tremendous help. So, and which...
Did your family have any background? Were you the first person to go to college?
I was the first. Yeah, I was the very first in my family to go to college, yeah. And I had, it was myself, I had 4 other siblings. So. And, but I enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I matured also. And now, you know, I'm watching other people get promoted. And I'm like, okay, Jenkins, what you could do? Then I go, well, no, that's going to interfere with my softball playing. But I went to a buddy of mine's house. He was a firefighter. Matter of fact, both of them were firefighters. And I went down to do some recording. You know, I was big on making my reel-to-reel tapes. And I went down there, and, you know, I'd been down there several times because we trade music. And I went in, and the whole table in his family room was covered with training manuals. I couldn't believe it. I asked him, what are you guys doing? He said, we're studying for the lieutenant. We would take the lieutenant's test. I'm going, what? We would take the lieutenant's test. I mean, they had everything you needed to study for the lieutenant's test. And then they said, well, Joe, you better come on. But the competitive nature in me came out. In my mind, I'm not going to let these two guys take the test and outdo me. And they were about 4 years old. They had been in the fire department about 4 or 5 years before I even got in the fire department.
How much time did you have at this point? Like how far into your career were you?
12 years.
Okay.
Yeah, 12 years, because I got promoted in 83. Yeah, 12 years. And sure enough, I started studying. I meet with them. We studied. They even had the sample test where you mark the circle, the X, the, A, B, C. I said, man, I mean, these guys were ready. Test time came. And I had taken the test before, but I was playing softball. Test started at 8 o'clock. I was in a tournament that Saturday morning. It started at 9:30. I went in and took the test, and nobody else had turned theirs in, and by now it's only about 8:45, 8:30. And I waited for one person. Once he went up, I heard him one of them, which means I just took it just to see what it was about. And like the guy told me, it was free. It didn't cost me anything, but it should have taken me at least 2 hours, but I was in there 35, 40 minutes. But anyway, that was the first time. Second time, I was prepared. And that's when you did the written test. And then after the written test, depending on whether they made the cutoff, you went and did assessment center. So I came in 24th after the written test. After the assessment center, I still was 24th. But guys who were 7, 8, 9, 10, they fell back. I said, oh, I'm fortunate then. I'm still 24. And they promoted 16 straight off the top. And so by that time they promoted 16, that moves me up. And next time they came around to promote off that same list, that's how I got promoted to lieutenant. And it wasn't, if you notice, I don't polish stuff like that was my intent. It just happened. Where I think my competitive spirit is what has helped me in everything. Because I am determined that I may not be the best, but I'm going to be right up there with the best. I don't care what it is I'm doing, and I'm not going to embarrass myself, and I'm not going to embarrass any supervisor. That's why how I processed and did my entire career. But now I'm a lieutenant. Hey, send me over to where did I go? 6th truck.
Okay.
And they had another black lieutenant on the other shift from me. And when you're brand new lieutenant, you want to follow all the rules. You knew. And 6th truck, 14 as it is, was just built, brand new building. We were the first group to move into the building. For the first 4 months, we were down at 5 because they hadn't finished the construction. And I had a great time over there at 14, but one of the mistakes I made until this black firefighter pulled me to the side, and you might see a little humor in this, but it made me a better officer. I went, like I said, when you're a young officer, you're following the books because that's, you feel like you ain't got enough experience yet to kind of venture astray from the lesson plan. And we had finished eating. I'm going, okay, we go hit the streets. Nice warm weather outside. So I'm getting on the intercom. All right, 6th truck, let's roll. And ain't nothing happened. I ain't see nobody. I went upstairs. Both companies, which you could tell it was a habit, it was a routine, looking at the young and the restless. I'm going, oh, no. We going on the street. This veteran black firefighter, he had been there since '65. He was the first black firefighter over there. He said, Lieutenant, can I have a word with you for a moment? So I said, yeah. And I said, Wallace, what's up? I don't understand him. He said, Jenkins, he said, Lieutenant, let me tell you. He said, they will do anything for you, trust me. He said, but just give them this hour. And he said, you'll be surprised. He said, but if you come, with the iron fist syndrome, you will lose them. And I'm like, shucks. But I did it. And he was right. Those guys did everything that they could possibly to make me look good. I had no problems, no issues. They would tell me stuff if they saw that I was kind of faltering on something, they'd come and prop me right up. Oh, yes, indeed. And he was right. He was right. And so I had 4 years over there. I only had one. I ain't gonna go there. But no, I had one firefighter that really gave me a tough time.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I moved from there after 14. I got a phone call one day on the Centrex phone, city phone. Lieutenant Jenkins, this is Chief Lewis. I'd like for you to think about coming down to the training academy. Keeping in mind that people played on the phone, different stations call you to prank you.
Right.
It's still common.
So, right. So my response was, who is this? Stop playing on the phone. That's when he hit me with, this is Fire Chief Ron C. Lewis. I went, oh. Of course, I apologized. I told him how they play tricks and blah, blah. And then he asked me, he said, I would like for you to come down to the training academy and be the lead recruit instructor. I said, you got the right person? He said, Jenkins, Lieutenant. I said, yes, okay. He said, I need your answer by 5 o'clock this evening. He said, now, it's going to be a big shift for you to go from working shift working and going a 40-hour work week. He said, talk it over with your family, give me a call, and let me know. And, of course, I ain't have to think twice, And that's how I ended up at the academy. Mm-hmm. But years later, I finally got the nerve to ask Chief Lewis. I said, Chief Lewis, of all the guys in the fire department, all the lieutenants, why me? He said, Jenkins, he said, Lieutenant, you don't see yourself. He said, none of us do. He said, other people see you, see what it is that you don't see. He said, you can stand in the mirror all day long, but you don't see yourself. He said, your name was floated down here, and I talked to several people. He said, Lieutenant, you'd be surprised. I said, well, I am surprised. And of course, I didn't get engaged in this conversation, I know, until almost 10 years later, no less time than that, because he left in 95. And I had no idea. No. Now, I go down to training academy, I'm about as green as that grass. Had no idea, never instructed. And they told me they would send me up to the National Fire Academy in Emmitsburg. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm like, where's that? And that's why, I'm truthful, honest, and straightforward. I don't sugarcoat it. And I'm not trying to sit here and tell you that I would, that wasn't what happened. And I went up there, and it was a 2-week class. There were 26 people in the class, and I was the only black firefighter up there. Mm-hmm. Whew, boy, you're talking about culture shock. And, but once again, I'm a competitor. I meant I was not going to embarrass myself. These guys were not going to be able to make fun and say I fell on my face. Not at all. And I stood right in that class for 2 weeks and got basically instructor 101, how to address a crowd, how to stand up and talk to an audience, how to put together lesson plans, how to do the slide presentations. I knew none of that at all. And, and then when I left, I got my first recruit class. The current fire chief, Melvin Carter, was in my very first recruit class.
87-2, right? We've heard that number a few
Absolutely.
times.
Quite a few times.
And that was my first class as the lead recruit instructor down at the academy. I think Chief Carter was, I'm guessing he was like 24, 25 at the time. But I could tell then that there was something about him, that he was one of the few black guys that I had encountered that knew he wanted to be a firefighter since he was a little boy. You know, you hear it from a lot of our white counterparts, but Chief Carter, you could just see it in him. That he wanted to be a firefighter. That was, and I think it came to us from Petersburg. But that was my first class. And of course, I learned a lot from the first class, and a lot of them didn't know that I was as green as that grass out there, because and the physical fitness, the training, the classroom work, the climbing of the 100-foot ladder. I would always do it first to let them see, and I'd hook my belt, and I'd let go and stand there. And because I found out that I drew some from my military background, that if you show people what it is you want done and you lead the way, you won't have any problem. They'll follow you. They'll follow you because they know he can do it. He's not asking us to do something that we can't do.
How did that change how you viewed the fire service? To me, it's much different when you do the job and then you have to try and explain it to someone. It kind of changes sometimes how you view the job itself.
Right. I found that dealing with young men, and my next class I had one female, but dealing with young men, you have to first gain respect and give them respect. And I started on my first class, every recruit I called them Mr. So-and-so, whatever the last name was. And everybody had nicknames. I never once called any firefighter by his nickname, never. And I found out that I even had some say, no, Lieutenant, you don't have to call me Mr. You are Mr. Smith to me. And they respected that. It's amazing how that worked. And from that point on, every time I had a recruit class, everybody was Mr. So-and-so, Miss Smith. Mr. Smith or Miss Smith. And that's the way I dealt with the young people, and that's how I got that respect. And as one recruit told me a few years later, he said he saw me doing something, and I was laughing. And he came up to me, he said, I think I was captain, and he said, Captain, he said, you know one thing, the whole time I was at the academy, I never knew that you knew how to laugh. Until, and I didn't, and that was, I did that on purpose, and because I would laugh like in the last week because they getting ready to graduate, but even being there at the academy, I was there, especially when I went back as a captain, in charge of the academy. I was the only one down there who had a white shirt. These white salesmen would come in, and Miss Burroughs, the receptionist, she would be sitting at the desk, and I'd be standing there going over some papers. And they would come in and ask, and we need to speak to whoever's in charge. And now I'm standing there, and she looked up, and she pointed at me. The whole facial expression. I've seen guy get flushed red. And, and he'll look at me, he said, oh, I didn't know you were in charge down here. I said, yes, I am. So he said, well, I got a new product, and I'd like to demonstrate and show you and see whether or not y'all would be interested. I told him, I said, well, you see the receptionist, you make an appointment and come back one day next week or whenever, and she'll check with me. And he couldn't believe it. And I had that happen on several different occasions. Even when purchasing new fire trucks, and I would go to see how they were coming along with the construction. And they were not used to seeing a black firefighter, a black man, pointing out different things on the fire truck, what I would like to go here, what I would like to go there. You know, they taking their notes and everything, but it was just unheard of. You know, you just didn't see it. And I thank Chief Lewis for allowing me to do some of the things and present those opportunities to me. It was different. And then we got the new contract with Motorola for the new radios. They sent me to Milwaukee to be a part of the program and to make a pitch so that Motorola could get their contract. When I got off the airplane, there was a guy holding a sign saying Jenkins. Oh, no. That was a stretch limo.
Oh.
Keep in mind my background, where I'm from, Creighton Court. And now, years later, there's a stretch limo with a guy with a sign waiting for me to carry me to the hotel. Hyatt Regency, 17th floor. And, you know, when they have all the condiments and all, I had access to anything I ain't paid. And next day, after we had the program, free tickets to the Milwaukee baseball game. And, you know, those are the types, and everybody else, all of my counterparts who were white, just took it in stride because they were accustomed to it. You know, I mean, I'm 17th floor in the Hyatt Regency. Whoa. And, but it was just amazing. It was amazing to go through those types of situations and to experience some of the things that I experienced that I never in a million years thought that would ever happen to Joe Jenkins.
What did so you had a stint at training from, I think you said 87
To 89.
89, and then you came back again later.
Right.
So looking back, how does I guess, do you have any sense of maybe the kind of impact that you had, you know, being in charge, or even if you weren't the lead instructor later in your career, but still touching that many people on their first experience with the fire service? Have you ever, I guess, do you have any sense of, you know, what kind of impact that might have had on the generation that came after you?
Well, yes, because once I went back the second time, which was in '96, I was the training commander. I was in charge of the entire training academy. And all of those recruit classes that came in, I met them on day one, introduced myself, talked to them all as a group, tell them what my expectations of each and every one of them was, how we did things down here. If you had any problems, go to your lieutenant, and if you weren't satisfied with his answer, come and see me. And a lot of the black recruits would wait around, you know, after 5 o'clock when they saw me getting ready to leave, and they'd come and they'd ask me questions about the job, where they made the right decision by becoming a part of the fire service, and you know, and I told them absolutely. You know, this, you know, working in fire service, especially being a black man or woman, you know, you have an impact on the community from your visibility alone. Now, I remember the days riding on the fire truck and going through neighborhoods, and the black people used to be tickled to see me, and they waving, and you know, and that's the impact that you have on your community. And at the time, you may not know it, or appreciate it, or even welcome it. You're like, "You're waving at me for," you know, but that's because you didn't know. But I used to, those guys used to wait around for me after, you know, time to get off. I'm getting ready to get in my car to go home, and they would ask different questions. And I said, well, this is an opportunity for you to give back to your community, number one. Don't ever forget that. Don't forget where you came from. Be the best that you can be in all phases of the fire service. You know, and please don't do anything to embarrass yourself or the fire service. Don't do that. And because, some listen, unfortunately, some don't, but, that was my way of interacting with the firefighters.
I don't, as one of those firefighters that sat there with you on the first day, if you don't mind, I'd like to maybe share something with you that, we haven't never really talked about. But,
Right.
like you said, that first day, I distinctly remember you coming in, talking to us. At the time, I was 25 years old.
Right.
Like you, never thought about the fire service. I was, had graduated from college and was working for a bank before I came to the fire department, and knew nothing about the fire department. And but I knew working for the bank, it didn't take me long to realize that I wanted to contribute something. And so after you I don't remember if it was before or after you kind of gave your expectation speech, you went around the room and you pointed to had each person stand up and basically say, "Why are you here?"
Right.
And in my mind, my answer to that question was to make a difference. And looking back, obviously I've tried to educate myself along the way. One of the books that's had a lot of impact on me is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Right.
The first habit is begin with the end in mind. And although maybe you didn't know it at that time, that kind of gave me, you asking that question of me has always been kind of an anchor for me in my career, and kind of set the course for me and what I wanted to accomplish in my career. And at the time, make a difference to me was help the community. All those things you said, fight fire, save lives, or whatever my impression was of the fire service at that time. But as I've grown in my career, as I've advanced in my, in rank, it's also come to mean make a difference in the fire service.
Right.
Change it for the better. Help impact our job, make it safer, make it a better place to work for our employees, make it more inclusive for our employees. So I just want to say thank you. And I'm sure that of probably the hundreds of people that came through that academy under your leadership had similar ways that you impacted their careers. I just wanted to say thank you for setting the tone for me, because you were also kind of my first impression of a leader in the fire service. And you struck me as someone who was, fair, like you said, treated people with respect, was knowledgeable, but also connected with people. You knew, even though you did your job, you could tell that there was a side to you that understood people and cared about the people that you worked with. So that really did set kind of a tone for me and how I lead in the fire service. So I really appreciate your leadership, even though we never have really spoke of it. As I've reflected on that over my career, there's definitely some lessons that you taught me that I didn't even realize at the time. So thank you.
You're more than welcome. Your saying that reminded me of how high school principals feel. And I think we all know that when you went to high school, little knuckleheads, and then years later, whatever you may be doing in your life, and the principal sees you, his chest pokes out. And that's the same with me. All of the recruits that I've had, I think Marilyn, last time I talked to her, just before I retired, I was responsible for over 223 recruits in this fire department. And each time I see one that's been promoted, my chest poke out. Every time, I'm so proud of the people who came through during my time, during my era, that has gotten promoted. Some have been promoted and retired since then. But I think out of all the people that were promoted, I think I've only had 2 surprises. But for the most part, you can you get a feel, you can tell whether who's going to stay the course and do the right thing and progress through the department. But I can only think of 2. It may have been a couple of more. But,
well, Chief Jenkins,
you feel good about that.
Absolutely. And I will say your legacy and the things you've taught lives on. I've only been here for a short 10 years. Obviously, this is my first time meeting with you in person. But if I talk to any firefighter that's been here over 15, 20, 25 years, and you get to talking about a training academy, and they would say, "Oh, so who was your training instructor?" And they would say, "Oh, I had, Chief Jenkins." And they always follow up with this elaborate, great story about you or something that you taught them. And that is common when you talk to many people throughout the fire service within the Richmond Fire Department. So the things that you've led in the fire service continues to lead on in the Richmond Fire Department.
Well, thank you. But as I said earlier, I didn't know. I didn't know that I was having that kind of impact. You don't know. You just do what it is that you need to do. You draw on some of the things that your mama taught you, and you find that things just work.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think people could see that about you, and I think that's part of what made you a good leader. Is they could tell where your heart was, and you don't. People that know it don't always lead that way, if that makes sense. And
right.
But I think like I said, we thought Black History Month was a great time to talk with you, but also I think it's a time to learn from you and some of your experiences like you shared with us today, but also a chance to celebrate your contributions and recognize the impact that you have had on the fire department. So I don't think you should. Just because it wasn't by design, I don't think you should sell yourself short on the contributions that you made to this department and the impact you've had.
Well, I think after all has been said and done, I think Ken did that one thing. I'm not a braggart. If you know, I've tried to stay humble because I know I'm a competitive person who's going to do the best he can be and surround myself with good people and do the right thing. I've always said, and this is, I say this all the time, and it comes off as a joke. I'm only afraid of two things. Two things in my life that I've only been afraid of two things. And that's dogs and going to jail. And I mean, that's been a part of me since I was 14, 15 years old. So what has it done? Never been to jail.
You ever been chased by a dog?
Yeah.
So you stay.
My
You're not
dog,
going in the yard.
I had to try it a couple of times, but and whenever I tell that, people laugh. But that has a lot of backbone to it. For me to start saying around 14 or 15 that I'm not going to jail. Oh no, which means I'm gonna stay within the confines of the law. I'm gonna do the right thing to the best of my ability because. I ain't hearing no cells going clink. But let me back up and give you a story of mine as a firefighter. Engine Company number 6. You know where it's located at, right? And that was before 195 came through. They used to have the penitentiary sitting right there on the hill. And it was Organ Hills fire station. Filled in down there one day, and that was the one fire station that no black firefighters wanted to go to fill in. You just didn't, you weren't welcome down there, you weren't comfortable there. It was a neighborhood firehouse. I filled in, and it was summertime, everybody's outside. I'm looking at TV, and neighborhood kid comes in. I guess it was 3 of them, and they had a refreshment machine, nabs, and et cetera, drink machine. And he turned the station, and I'm looking. I said, "Excuse me, young fella, I'm looking at that." He looked at me and said, "I want to see so and so and so." I said, "Well, I'm looking at it, and you had to get up and turn the TV back." And I turned the TV. Sure enough, them kids went home and brought his daddy back. And he looked at me. He said, "You're not from around here, are you?" I said, "Well, no, but I'm work for the city of Richmond Fire Department." He said, "Well, my boys come down here every day. This is our neighborhood fire station, and we can look at whatever we want to look at." I said, "Sir, I'm looking at TV." He said, "Well, ain't no black man gonna come down here and change our fire. This is what we do down here." So, okay, all right. So anyway, so I called the battalion chief up and told him, "You got to get me from down here. I can't stay down here." And sure enough, he bought me, came down there and got me some, and I traded places with a guy up at 18, just for a day.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, and there was one black guy that was stationed down there. I don't know how he survived. But yeah, that was one of my stations that wasn't black firefighters did not like going in Oregon Hill.
How did you see that change over the course of your career? Because obviously a big difference between 1970 and 2000.
Right.
But
What happened? Chief Lewis came to Richmond in 1978 or 79. Plus, the 195 came through, so they had to move Fire Station 6 and to its current location. The penitentiary was knocked down. Oregon Hill wasn't what it used to be because of 195 coming through. And that changed some of the culture. And he started assigning more black firefighters down to Fire Station 6. That's what changed it. Chief Lewis changed the culture in a lot of fire stations throughout the city. Because we had black firefighters getting fired, all sorts of disciplinary action, and you had nowhere to go to, you couldn't go downtown. There was no one for you
to grieve it?
Right. And that's why they started Black Brothers Combined, because you could talk to them and they had contacts or interacted with certain people to try to get some things done. But for the most part, you were on your own. You know, and that were tough times. They really were. But I made the best of it. And I gained the respect because up at Fire Station 10, we had a ping pong table. I won every game.
Competitive nature.
Right. You know, and I grew up playing ping pong. You know, that was one of the few things that you had in the projects at the recreation center was a ping pong table. And you know, and as you do certain things, they observe certain things. Fire Station 10 has a pole in it. I'll never forget the first day, naturally, this white firefighter would show me how to slide a pole. I said, well, okay. So the way he did it, he put a ladder up first and and I slid halfway. He said, it will look a lot different than when you go all the way up the top of the steps. I said, okay. So anyway, I go upstairs on the second floor. He feels like I'm ready. So he goes down. I go down right behind him. He said, oh, that wasn't bad. Let's do it again. So he went down. I went down. And after I finished going down, then I went back up. Oh, he couldn't believe it. He went and told all the other, hey, y'all come and check on Jenkins. Come here. I thought couldn't nobody do that but Captain Wyatt. And he was the engine company captain. He could do it. But couldn't nobody else in that fire station do it. And so I just went on. I don't know what and I think what made me do that, because he was kind of getting on my nerves, like he was really doing something, showing me something.
You had to show him a little something extra.
Yeah. But you know, all in fun. But the word spreads around in that engine house, and then a little more respect. You gain a little more respect. But that was my life in the fire service, and I could go on because I'm quite sure I'm forgetting some things.
Well, I think you've shared a lot with us. I certainly have taken a lot from it already, and we definitely appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people will enjoy hearing these stories and you know, kind of reflecting back on you know, your contributions, and it's a great story. You know, certainly you know, we are always striving for people from the city to contribute to the fire service. You know, that's one of our main, you know, recruiting goals. So, because there's that, like you said, that connection to the community that you had that you don't get if you didn't grow up in the city. So, it's a great story. We certainly appreciate your contributions, and you know, like I said, take a chance to learn from you and also kind of celebrate, you know, the impact that you did have. So thank you for joining us today, Travis. Do you have any other questions?
Yes, Chief Jenkins, one last question. What piece of advice would you give to all the young and upcoming officers in the fire service?
To the young officers, I always say, treat and respect others as you would like to be treated and respected. That there is nothing that says because you're an officer that you have to know everything about everything and how to do everything. Just because you're an officer, no. These are people that if you show respect, you have to depend on them on certain situations, and they will be willing to help you. As a young officer, you have to do that. You can't go in and strong arm. You get nothing done doing that. You can't go in pretending that you know everything there is to know. Yes, you can read the book and know everything, but there are certain things that you have to learn through experience, through observing hands-on situations. That's what I would tell any young officer.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I think that's good advice, and I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today, and you know, certainly hope to talk with you again in the future, but thanks for coming in. We appreciate your time, appreciate your service, and we'll be talking soon.
All right, thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.